There was once a king chosen by God himself, a man anointed with holy oil, a warrior crowned before an entire nation. But on the final night of his life, God would no longer answer him. No dreams, no prophets, no voice from heaven. His kingdom, his sons, and his life would all be buried beneath the blood-soaked stones of Mount Gilboa. This is the tragic fall of King Saul. For 40 years, Saul ruled Israel. He was taller than every man in the kingdom, stronger, beautiful in the terrible way mountains are beautiful, majestic, immovable, touched by divine favor. The prophet Samuel had poured sacred oil over his head, while the Spirit of God rushed upon him like wildfire. And for a moment, Saul shone. But power does not create darkness inside a man. It reveals the darkness already waiting there. And deep inside Saul's heart, hidden beneath courage and royalty, something poisonous had been growing for years. Fear. The fear of losing what God had given him. The fear that another would rise higher. The fear that love, loyalty, and power could all be stolen away. Then David came, a shepherd boy carrying the favor of heaven. And Saul's fear became obsession. The songs of Israel tortured him. Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. From that moment forward, Saul was no longer fighting enemies outside his kingdom. He was fighting the war inside his own soul. Paranoia consumed him like rot beneath gold. He hunted David through wilderness caves, turned against loyal priests, spilled innocent blood. And little by little, the voice of God grew quiet, until finally, it stopped altogether. The silence of God is heavier than war. Samuel was dead, buried beneath the earth of Ramah. The prophet who once guided kings had taken heaven's voice with him into the grave. Now, Saul prayed into emptiness. No dreams came, no visions answered, no prophet spoke. Outside his tent, the Philistine army stretched across the valley like a sea of iron. Their shields reflected moonlight like sharpened teeth. Their chariots shook the earth. And Saul, Israel's mighty king, was afraid, not of battle, not of death, but of abandonment. Fear drives men into places they once condemned. The king who had outlawed sorcery now searched for it in secret. Under the cover of darkness, Saul stripped away his royal garments and traveled by night to Endor, to a forbidden place, to a woman who spoke with the dead. Even the air around her dwelling felt cursed. The earth itself seemed to recoil beneath his feet. "Bring up Samuel for me," the old woman obeyed reluctantly, sensing terror beneath the stranger's disguise. Her hands moved through smoke and shadow. The flame suddenly died. A freezing wind rushed through the cavern, and then, something appeared. Samuel, not as memory, not as dream, but as judgment. "Why have you disturbed me?" Saul collapsed to his knees, begging, pleading, desperate for one final word from the God who had abandoned him. But Samuel brought no comfort, only prophecy. "The Lord has departed from you." The word struck harder than any sword. Then came the final sentence. "Tomorrow, you and your sons will be with me." The king's strength vanished. His body trembled violently against the dirt floor. For the first time in his life, Saul understood what it meant to be completely forsaken. Morning came anyway. The sky brightened over Gilboa as if heaven itself felt nothing. Saul stood in full armor beside his sons, Jonathan, faithful Jonathan, the son who loved David, yet never abandoned his father. A final mercy Saul did not deserve. Below them, the Philistine army moved like a living machine of iron and violence. Then the horn sounded, and the mountain exploded into war. The ground shook beneath the charge. Philistine chariots were across the valley floor, their iron wheels ripping through dirt and bone alike. Behind them marched endless waves of infantry, a wall of shields, a forest of spears. The Israelites fought desperately from the high ground, but terror had already infected their hearts. The prophecy of doom had spread through the camp like disease, and when the Philistines crashed into them, the lines shattered, chaos swallowed the mountain, the battle became a slaughter. Men slipped in blood and mud, while arrows rained from above like black storms. The cries of dying soldiers echoed through the hillsides, and still the Philistines advanced, relentless, merciless, like judgment itself climbing the mountain. Then came the archers. Thousands of arrows blackened the sky. They fell like iron locusts upon Israel. Men were pinned to rocks. Horses collapsed, screaming. No shield was large enough. No armor thick enough. Death rained from heaven itself. Jonathan fell first, still fighting, still loyal. A spear pierced through his chest and drove him backward into the dirt of Gilboa. Then Abinadab fell. Then Malchishua. One by one, Saul watched his bloodline disappear into the dust. His sons, his legacy, his future, destroyed before his eyes. And still the arrows came. Then death came for Saul himself. An arrow pierced his thigh, another buried deep into his shoulder. Pain exploded through him like fire. The mighty king staggered backward, leaning heavily upon his sword. Around him, Israel fled in terror. The giant stood alone, abandoned by men, abandoned by heaven, abandoned by himself. "Draw your sword," Saul whispered. "Kill me." He would not be captured, would not be mocked in Philistine temples, would not become a trophy for pagan kings. But the armor-bearer froze in horror. Even now, he could not strike the Lord's anointed. So Saul made his final choice, the last decision of Israel's first king. He planted the sword firmly into the earth, placed the point against his chest, and with one final breath carrying 40 years of glory, fear, war, pride, and failure, Saul fell upon the blade. Steel pierced flesh. The crown slipped from his head and rolled into the mud, and just like that, the king was gone. Seeing his master dead, the armor-bearer chose death as well, and together they lay upon Mount Gilboa, king and servant, broken beneath the storm, dust returning to dust. The Philistines stripped Saul's armor, hung his body upon the walls of Beth-shan. The chosen king became a warning to generations yet unborn, a man who possessed everything: power, favor, victory, a throne, yet lost himself piece by piece until nothing remained but silence. The mountain still remembers him. The wind still carries his name through Gilboa's dead grass, and somewhere beneath the thunder of history, Saul leaves behind one final warning. No crown can save a man who loses the voice of God, and no fall is more terrifying than the fall from his presence. And maybe that is the tragedy of Saul. Not merely that he died, but that he slowly drifted away from the very presence that once made him great. Saul wanted power, but stopped seeking obedience. He wanted control, but stopped trusting God. And little by little, the man who once walked with heaven became consumed by fear, jealousy, pride, and silence. Because the danger is not always sudden destruction. Sometimes the real danger is becoming so distracted, so wounded, so consumed by ego, that you no longer hear the voice of God. Saul's story is not just about a fallen king. It is a warning to every generation. A warning that talent cannot replace character, that calling cannot survive without obedience, and that a crown without God eventually becomes too heavy to carry. But there is still hope, because unlike Saul, you are still breathing. You still have time to listen, time to return, time to seek God before the silence becomes permanent. And maybe tonight, before sleep finds you, you should ask yourself one question: have I been chasing success more than God Himself? If this story moved you, subscribe to Bible Reimagined TV for more cinematic journeys through the most powerful stories ever told. And comment below, what do you think truly destroyed Saul: fear, pride, or disobedience? Because sometimes the greatest battles in scripture are the ones happening inside the human soul.
Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and the bell notification icon.